Hey everyone, Kathy the Vegan Prepper here, and today we are discussing zero waste dishwashing. Let's get into it. Vegan Prepper. Vegan Prepper. All right, so whether you wash your dishes in the dishwasher or in the sink or use some combination of both, hopefully I will be able to give you some information today that will help you out in making more zero waste choices in your dishwashing, and I'm gonna assume that you want to do so, or else why on earth would you be watching this video? So for the dishwasher, it's gonna be really fast and easy. Basically, you want to find a company that is a zero waste company that uses very little extraneous packaging or has compostable packaging and all of that. Ideally, something that isn't full of microplastics and all of that. So I think a couple of years ago, I heard about this company from another from a zero waste YouTuber, because I don't consider myself a zero waste YouTuber. I'm like zero waste. I have goals, but also let's be really clear too that there is no such thing as zero waste. There's always going to be some amount of waste somewhere, just with the way that our systems are set up. Unless you are truly off grid and producing 100% of everything that you need on your own land, there's going to be waste somewhere. This is more about minimizing it. I feel like it would be better to call it low waste, but I guess zero waste is kind of the goal. So just as an FYI, I definitely have not arrived at zero waste. I can't put an entire year's worth of trash in a jar. I don't know a single person that is like that. So anyway, this is just about taking steps a little by little to just get better, little by little, right? Like, anyway, so this is a great company. These are vegan. There's no microplastics. The packaging is fantastic. In fact, when I ordered this, I ordered direct from the company website, which is the least expensive way that I have found to purchase these dishwasher pods. They are, they're not like insanely expensive, but they are really way more expensive on EarthHero.com, which is where I was originally purchasing them. So I will be putting a link, like I said, to the actual website in the description box down below. When these were shipped to me, it was pretty great. I don't know if you can see just like this little perforation right here. It was two boxes basically together, and then there was just like a connection. And that was all. Like, there wasn't even an extra box around the boxes. So it was really a great way to ship. There was no plastic involved. Now maybe that could be an issue if you live somewhere that's really prone to like flooding or rain or something. But basically these are just your typical like little pods you just stick in the dishwasher, and for my experience, they work every bit as well as Cascade. Like, actually, I think they work better. And that's not just, you guys know, I'm honest. I will tell you if it doesn't work. And these work amazingly well. So I've been using these very happily now for about 2 years. And the boxes are compostable, recyclable, and all of that. So this is a great option for your dishwasher. Now, for washing dishes by hand, and somebody out there is going to say, you shouldn't wash dishes by hand because you use more water. And I guess that's true. You can use a lot more water washing dishes by hand, especially if you leave the faucet running. I don't know why on earth anybody would leave the faucet running while they are doing their dishes, but that's another conversation for another time. But the truth is, of course, that there are certain dishes that you can't throw in the dishwasher, like my enamel cast iron, like many of the wooden utensils that I use. Those are not dishwasher safe. And so there are certain things that I do still end up washing by hand. In fact, all my pots and pans, I wash those by hand. I don't put them in the dishwasher. And so I usually, at least once or twice a day, I am doing some hand wash dishes. And so that requires a little bit of a different setup. So for me personally, I usually have a little tray on the shelf behind my sink here, and it has my zero waste dishwashing stuff on it. So this is kind of what it looks like, and I will walk you through what a lot of these things are. So basically right here in front of my nose, we've got my dish soap block, which is what you use now instead of a liquid detergent. So that comes also in like compostable packaging. And then you're able to not have a big plastic bottle to throw away every single time you run out of soap. I'm sorry, I have kids and they don't care that I'm filming. But anyway, so you don't have a big plastic bottle to throw away every time you run out of soap. So right here we have like the leftovers of the last bar of soap that I was using. And I use those in various ways. I will sometimes use the soap itself to kind of scrub a spot. So these will still get used, but I did start a new block because eventually it becomes difficult to get soap off of these as they get smaller. In my little jar here, I have the various brushes that I use. Now, not all of these, some of these are plastic, right? Like, gasp, plastic. But like, these are brushes I already owned, and I'm not going to throw them away and replace them with something that looks more friendly just because I want my display of zero waste stuff to be the zero wastiest. Honestly, the most zero waste that it can be is to really use what you already have until it is no longer usable and then replace it. So that is what happened with my original dish brush. I had a plastic one and I just used it until it was not usable anymore. And then I got a new brush that is a zero waste brush. Same thing with my bottle brush. I used my old plastic one until it just was not usable anymore. And then when I replaced it with more of a zero waste option. So this is, you know, coconut core. It's not plastic. There's no plastic in it. This is a reusable thing. The head pops out. You can replace the head, and then the heads are compostable. And so I can link all of these things down below. I got most of this on EarthHero.com. This I got on another site. This is honestly not my favorite, but this is one of the only vegan options I've ever found. A lot of times the bristles on these brushes are made of boar hair rather than like coconut core. So I had to, or coconut fiber or whatever it is, I had to find a vegan bottle brush for my own ethics and purposes. But if you don't care about that, it will be a lot easier for you to find zero waste brushes. But looking for vegan ones, it adds like another layer to the whole thing. But yeah, so you will end up likely needing a dish brush of some kind, and usually a bottle brush, and a straw brush. I have multiple straw brushes just because it seems like for whatever reason, almost every time you buy a pack of reusable straws, they come with a straw brush. I don't need any more straw brushes, but you know, I don't know, such as it is, that they're still useful for other things. And then just some various other little cleaning brushes that I use in other ways. This is actually the brush that came with my juicer. So these are kind of the brushes I use. I just keep them in a little jar on this little thing, and it's all ready to go. So that's all well and good to have the equipment that you need in order to actually wash your dishes, but what does it look like? Because a lot of times, well, at least for me, there was a pretty steep learning curve going from using kind of the old model of a big vat of water with a squeeze of dish soap, and then there's enough soap in the water to really clean everything. Everybody says you don't really need suds in order to actually get something clean. This is honestly not my experience. I feel like a lot of times, unless I'm getting suds on the surface of the thing that I am washing, it's not really getting clean, especially if, you know, for the most part, we are oil-free vegans. Every now and then we do have something that has, you know, whether I add tahini to a sauce to make it richer, or if you know, for whatever reason, we do end up making a batch of popcorn with some coconut oil in a pan. You really need that the suds of the actual soap, or else that grease is never going to get out of there. And so I wanted to go ahead and show what the actual process looks like, so that if you decide you'd like to switch over to something like this, you will be able to do so and not have. So like for a while there, I was like, this is just not gonna work. It's just not gonna work. But I sort of figured out some tricks, and then it started working. So let's go ahead and do a little dishwashing demo. All right, honorable mention, because I forgot this usually lives on my display, but it was off because I was using it and I didn't put it back. And so this is a loofah, and I actually grew this myself in my yard. So this is an extremely zero waste way to go. If you can grow your own loofahs, that's an excellent scrubby. Or if you can get loofah from somebody, but it's usually pretty expensive. So if you live in a place that has a really long hot summer, you can probably grow some loofah, and it's fantastic. I love growing it. I have tons that I've just grown over the last couple years, and I have a ton of these. And so when they get wet, it's normally hard, but when it gets wet, it gets nice and squishy, and then you can use it like as a scrubber for your pots or just all kinds of things. And so this is probably my personal favorite tool to use because it truly is zero waste, because like I said, I grew it myself. And so, yeah, and then also once it's done, you just compost it. So anyway, let's go ahead, like I said before, we are gonna go ahead and get to the actual logistics of the dishwashing, and I'm gonna give you my tips. Okay, so I'm gonna ask for a little bit of grace on the state of things over here, because I am legitimately doing my dishes for you, and I haven't really scrubbed the sink down yet because I haven't done this job yet. So, basically, everything here is a hand wash dish except for some of these things, like if they go through the dishwasher and they come out and they're still not clean, for whatever. This time it was because they kind of got packed too close together and the water couldn't get up inside of them. And so I am going to hand wash those, because if I try to put them back in the dishwasher, they're just still not going to be clean. So every now and then there is something that's not like a hand wash dish. But basically what I do, especially for pots and pans or whatever, I will fill it up to the top. I'll fill as many, so see, like I nested another pan in here, trying to conserve as much water as possible because I live in a desert, but just in general, right? It's good practice. And so this water is not really for the actual dishwashing. It is for the soaking, to get stuff soaked so that I can clean those pans. Like especially something like this, you see, like this is really caked on. That's going to need to be filled and soaked. So let me go ahead and show you briefly what this actually looks like for me. So I get my little handy scrub brush. I'm going to get it wet in the water and then come over here and just sort of rub on the top to get myself some soap on the brush itself. And then I come in here and I pull it out, and now there is a glaze of water in here, and that's really all that I need. And now with the brush, I'm scrubbing out those things. You know, I'm washing a dish is what I'm doing. So I hope it's not like overly simplistic. But anyway, I have a little strainer that lives in my sink, which I use to strain things. And I wash it every couple days and I replace it with another one. But another thing I use the strainer for is to hold the soapy dishes that are waiting to be rinsed. I don't have like a full vat of rinse water over here. And so let me show you kind of as I go. You can see that I'm not using a ton of water because, like I was mentioning before, for me, it really seems like suds are necessary for the actual cleaning action. And so if I'm starting to run out of my suds, I just come back and get a few more. And so this is now ready to be cleaned or ready to be rinsed. And so what I will do with this, because same thing, if I start coming in here with this brush, basically all the soap will be gone. So I set this down, and if I have, you know, more than one pot to wash, I do this. I try to do it carefully. And I just reuse the water, like I said, because this is for soaking and not for necessarily cleaning per se. But now I have other things that I will throw in here, and I will use that water, although I don't like putting metal into my enamel. I'm just gonna be careful. But typically I don't do metal stuff. But like, especially so like this, these are old smoothie straws, like they need to soak. They're covered in dried up smoothie. So those will go in here and soak. And meanwhile, I will continue cleaning this. And so basically, I'm going to end up just repeating this process with everything, trying to use as little water as possible, and then just try to wash with as little waste as possible. So now I do my rinse, and I do my rinse also, I try anyway, to be really conservative with the water as I rinse as well. One of the really awesome things about a natural soap, so like I mentioned, like it seems like it doesn't clean unless it's getting sudsy, but one of the great things about it is it rinses off really fast. So you don't need nearly as much water to rinse these dishes as you do for, say, like a Dawn dish soap, which that stuff, it's like, I feel like that stuff never rinses off. Okay, so I'm gonna set these up to dry and I'll come back and get the rest of this washed. So hopefully that sort of cleared up the process for you and you got ideas about how you might be able to incorporate this into your own life. I know that I reuse the same water like a lot, and I know that that can probably gross people out. For me personally, I really do feel like those suds are getting everything super squeaky clean. Everything comes out absolutely beautiful and clean and gorgeous when I'm washing my dishes this way. Also keeping in mind the fact that we are vegan, I am never washing off like raw meat juices or dairy or any of that, that stuff that kind of can hold like some of the really icky and scary bacteria. So it's just like not even an issue for me to, you know, wash my wooden cutting board and all that. Like I'm not worried about cross contamination of anything because of the fact that we just don't have that in the house. If you are still, you know, a meat eater, that is potentially something that you might need to keep in mind, is to make sure that you're avoiding cross contamination. You may like to use a super fresh brush and just all fresh water if you're washing something that you had raw meat on. So it's just sort of something to keep in mind. But I also wanted to just quickly get on here and say, for anybody who's wondering, what on earth does zero waste have anything to do with prepping? Well, for one thing, I think prepping has so many layers. I think it isn't only about kind of large scale events or like power outages or any of that stuff. I think a lot of times it's about our daily lives and the things that we can do every single day to make our lives a little bit better and possibly to leave our planet better for the generation that comes after us. I think a lot of preppers think a lot about preparing for the end of the world, but what if it doesn't end? What if we continue? Then I think it's also you know, a good thing maybe to think about those coming after us and doing our best to, you know, make our own choices on how we are going to try to leave the planet better for other people. I'm not over here for like, you know, legislations or any of that stuff. I feel like it should be up to everybody's own choices and personal responsibility. I think that people, you know, we all live in different ways. We live in different places. We see different things. So like, for instance, for me, I live in a desert and I'm super concerned about the water usage. So I'm using as little water as I possibly can when I'm washing my dishes. You might not have the same concerns if you like live in Michigan, like right by the Great Lakes or whatever, you know what I mean? We all have kind of different concerns. And so I think it ends up informing our choices and also the way that we do things. But ultimately, I think zero waste is also in many ways, in many areas of our lives, it's a really great thing to start getting used to now, to also as a prep potentially. I have talked about like in my how I prioritize my preps video, and I get into sanitation and talk about how, you know, there have been disasters, and one of the things that ends up happening, especially in things like hurricanes or whatever, power getting cut off, or, you know, some blizzard comes through, whatever, services get cut off. And so people will end up being cut off from sanitation services. And so they won't, if you do live in a city like we do and you are kind of dependent upon sanitation to come and take your trash for you, what would you do if that stopped for, you know, an extended period of time? There have been disasters where people were stuck without help for, you know, taking trash out for weeks and weeks at a time. And so you read about, so actually most recently it was an article I was reading a little while ago about the aftermath of Hurricane Ida. And there were people after a month and a half who still had no power. There was no city trash. And that was one of the things it was talking about, was how, like, kind of really how gross it was that trash was being built up and the smell was just unreal. And so if we can create systems in our own lives where we are not producing as much trash, not only is that good to not send trash to a landfill, it's good to already have those habits in place for, you know, should some event occur and we lose access to sanitation, at least hopefully our house would not be building up with huge piles of trash, like, you know, like probably people around us. And also, again, like I said, us too, we probably take out a bag of trash every 2 days. And so we're definitely not zero waste. I would love to be more zero waste. A lot of that is also because in our city, the recycle requirements have recently, just in the last couple of months, have become much more strict, so that basically almost nothing is recyclable anymore. And so, like, the box that the drops come in is still recyclable because they will recycle corrugated cardboard. But for instance, they no longer recycle paperboard. So anytime we purchase anything that has paperboard, like if it's a pack of sparkling water, so the cans will be recyclable, but the paperboard container that it comes in has to go into the trash. And so things like that. So anyway, we are adjusting and figuring stuff out as we go as well. This is never meant to be a preachy thing. I don't ever mean to should on anybody. There are changes that we have made that have been really positive in our lives. And I just like to try to share that information and just sort of get people thinking about things that they might be able to do to keep themselves happy and safe in, you know, various potential situations. But also, I love the idea of my children growing up in a world that is still clean and still has nature and all of that. So that is definitely something that I think about. So anyway, hopefully you did enjoy this and you got some information and some tips that helped you. If you have wanted to transition but you didn't know how, maybe you saw something that made you realize that it is not for you at this time, and that is totally fine. You know, I will say a great idea for any of you who don't want to do the whole soap thing like I do is if you have a place that you can go to refill soaps. So I have just recently discovered in my local, in a local place that does have a refill station, and dish soap is one of the things that they will refill. So you take in your container, they will tear it for you. And it'll be, you know, the weight of the container, and then you go fill it, and then you end up only paying for what you put in your container. And then obviously there's still, again, it's not zero waste. There's still going to be waste. They have waste because they have to refill the refill station, but it is still much less waste than it would be purchasing individual bottles. And, you know, if you end up being stuck doing that, then you know what? You got to do what you got to do, and you probably could make choices in another area that are better than the choices that I make. So anyway, that's it. All right. As always, thank you. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, I hope the rest of your day is good and your life stays wonderful. So awesome to spend this time with you guys. I know that I'm not literally standing here while you're watching, but you know, as I film, I don't know, I'm thinking of all of you, and just hoping to provide something that is helpful to you and enriches your life. So hopefully that happened. Anyway, let me know down in the comments if you have anything to say. I love reading your comments and responding as much as possible. See you guys later. Bye.